Are these animals the key to unlocking the secret to immortality? Immortality isn't a myth that applies to vampires and mythological creatures anymore. There are animals that walk among us that are hundreds, if not thousands of years old. Don't believe us? Here are 10 immortal animals that never die. For one animal that is literally called the Immortal, keep watching all the way to number 1. Number 10. Lobsters. Is the lobster you see in the display of a restaurant an immortal being? It could be. A restaurant once advertised having a 20-pound lobster, only to have animal activists knocking on their door to save this creature that is potentially 140 years old. The scientific community is actually pretty conflicted about whether or not lobsters are biologically immortal, because you know what? Lobsters' common causes of death are usually injury or disease, not old age. Their dramatic longevity is credited to their unique ability to constantly repair their DNA. Lobsters have an endless supply of telomerase enzymes which generate telomeres, which in turn are responsible for a role in cell division. The immortal lobster's only obstacle to achieving, immortality is their own body. While they produce the telomerase enzyme throughout their adult lives, helping them have relatively youthful DNA forever, they eventually grow too large for their shells. The older a lobster is, the bigger its shell is. They do grow new exoskeletons each time their shells get too small, but that takes too much energy. Eventually, they succumb to shell collapse or average death causes such as exhaustion, predation, and disease. Number 9. Tardigrade. Tardigrades are that immortal being that shrugs off any injury. These animals are the closest thing we have to an animal equivalent of an indestructible tank. The more time passes, the more scientists realize there is little that can hurt tardigrades. In case you're unfamiliar with the image of this scrunched-faced animal, tardigrades, also known as water bears or moss piglets, are microanimals. They can range from 0.05 of a millimeter to 1.2 millimeters. They have 8 legs and hands that sport 4 to 8 claws on each, and you can find them at the bottom of lakes and all sorts of wet environments. When we say they're indestructible, we mean it. Tardigrades can survive in outer space. If you give them the chance, these animals can survive for thousands of years on end by making their metabolism shut down. Scientists have tested and proven that tardigrades can survive in environments as hot or hotter than 300 degrees Fahrenheit and as cold as minus 328 degrees Fahrenheit. These microanimals can survive radiation, boiling, and withstand pressure up to 6 times the pressure of the deepest, most suffocating part of the ocean. And yes, they can survive the vacuum of space without any protection. Tardigrades will likely also survive any sort of apocalypse. Number 8. Bowhead Whale. Bowhead whales aren't just one of the biggest living animals in the world who have the largest mouth of any living animal. They've been on this earth before our ancestors were born and will likely outlive us. See, bowhead whales, endemic to the Arctic and subarctic waters, are the oldest living mammal. Their average lifespan was previously thought to be around 40 years, but several species have popped up over 70 years old. In the 1990s, bowhead whales were found to bear scars from ancient weapons and harpoons from the 1800s. The oldest known bowhead whale was found to be 211 years old. Number 7. Turtles. Turtles are living proof that slow and steady wins the race. Everyone already knows turtles can live for hundreds of years, but did you know that they definitely have the potential to be truly immortal? According to the New York Times, if a turtle manages to avoid predation and disease, it could live relatively indefinitely. At one point, turtles just stop aging. Biologically speaking, there is little to no difference between a juvenile, teenage turtle and one that's been around since before your great-grandparents were born. In 2006, a tortoise that was thought to be a former pet of Charles Darwin died. it was 176 years old. Turtles are even aging so slowly that it's difficult for scientists to study them. Number 6. Glass sponges. Ever heard that crazy conspiracy theory that SpongeBob SquarePants is actually immortal? Well, who also lives in the deep ocean under the sea? Absorbent and glass-like and porous is he. Feast your eyes on the glass sponge, who experts believe are the longest-lived animals on Earth, aka the real-life immortal SpongeBob SquarePants. Glass sponges are animals you can find in abundance in the deep ocean. They're distinguishable by their glass-like structural particles, which are called spicules. Sometimes these spicules fuse together and form what looks like a glass house. Now, this glass house, this incredibly complex skeleton, often stays intact even after the actual sponge itself dies. However, they also found that ever since the last glacial maximum, glass sponges stopped living as long as they did. A study found that one particular specimen could have had an estimated age of 23,000 years. However, due to changes in sea levels, the sponge's maximum age is thought to be no longer than 15,000 years, which is still pretty impressive. Number 5. Hydra. Cut off one head and 2 more shall take its place. When we say Hydra, we don't mean the evil organization in the Marvel superhero comics. We're talking about this spindly, freshwater polyp. However, the saying more or less applies to them. Hydras can seemingly live forever without aging. Instead of deteriorating over time, a Hydra's stem cells are able to regenerate and renew. How come? It's all in their genes, which they have an abundance of. Scientists actually aren't pretty sure of how Hydra's immortality works, but the eternal youthfulness doesn't lie. Number 4. Ocean Quahog Clam. In 2006, an ocean quahog clam once made it into the Guinness Book of World Records when it died at the unfathomable age of 507 years old, making it the oldest living animal in the world. Like lobsters, clams grow in size as they get older. First of all, they grow at a much slower rate than other species of clams. Their unique longevity comes from a low aging acceleration and a lowered somatic maintenance cost. Other than the 507-year-old clam, which probably could have lived for much longer if it had not been collected, there was another 374-year-old specimen collected near Iceland in 1868. That means it lived at the peak of the Little Ice Age and had lived through the volcanic eruption of Mount Tambora in 1815. Number 3. Bdelloids. Meet the ancient asexuals, known as bdelloids. Bdelloids are these microscopic organisms that have an asexual history that dates back to over 25 million years, as fossil evidence shows. Now, bdelloids have a unique way to achieve immortality. They keep their genetic materials fresh by stealing them from other species. If you take a look at their DNA, you'll find that they are a genetic mosaic. One bdelloid was even found to have DNA from over 500 different species. Number 2. Planarian Worms. When Planarian worms see an obstacle such as, aging, they overcome it. Planarian worms are what Planarian worms call effectively immortal. For years, they have amazed experts with their endless ability to regenerate. For example, when a worm is cut to form 2 separate worms, they simply replace their damaged cells and cheat death. Planarian worms maintain their telomerase levels all throughout their lives. This regeneration applies to fighting off aging and damaged tissue. Number 1. Turritopsis Doohmii. And the one creature that truly lives up to its claim to immortality is the Turritopsis Doohmii. Turritopsis Doohmii is a very tiny species of jellyfish that really is the one being in the world that can live for thousands of years on end without dying of old age. Why? They cheat death by regenerating whenever it senses it could die. It's no wonder that the Turritopsis Doohmii is even called the immortal jellyfish. It's because whenever the jellyfish finds itself sick, injured, or generally threatened, it returns to its polyp stage. It basically transforms its cells into a youthful state. It then grows into adulthood all over again. By constantly reverting to an earlier stage of their life cycle, they laugh at death in the face. And it's not even a new jellyfish that grows again. It has the exact same identical DNA. And these are all the immortal animals that never die that we have for you today. What did you think of these ageless beings? Are they the key to unlocking the secret to immortality? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, hit that like button. And before you go, if you want to see more videos like this, subscribe to Weeklypedia and click that notification bell to be alerted whenever we upload a new video. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.